Welcome to the Security Assessment Best Practices webinar, presented by the University of Fairfax. My name is David Tefano, and I work in the admissions office at the University of Fairfax. University of Fairfax is the only 100% online graduate institution focusing solely on cybersecurity in the nation. We offer graduate certificates, master's, and doctoral programs in the fields of cybersecurity and information assurance. At this time, I would like to introduce our presenter, Dr. Stephen M. Helwig. Dr. Helwig is a senior information assurance professional with over 20 years of experience in disaster recovery, organizational security, risk management, policy, compliance, GRC, and network engineering. Currently, he is a systems security consultant for a major healthcare insurance company. Dr. Helwig earned his PhD in information assurance from the University of Fairfax, his MBA in information security from Salem International University, his MS in information systems from Capella University, and his BS in business administration from the University of Phoenix. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Stephen M. Helwig.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here. We're going to discuss a little bit about the Anthem and Premera breach that's happened recently. And as we go through this, if you have any questions, please post those to https://twitter.com cybersecurity live. You'll see the link here at the bottom of the introduction page. The agenda that I'd like to cover today is to go over some basics of governance, risk, and compliance, GRC, the HIPAA rules that apply to the breach, for HIPAA, and then we'll go into Anthem, which is a Blue Cross company, and Premera, which is also a Blue Cross company, and just overview their breaches that recently have occurred. There are some similarities between the two, and we'll go through those, and then we'll discuss some best practices. And of course, the question and answers, I will repost that link again, and I will do those after the presentation. First of all, GRC, or Governance, Risk Management, and Compliance, is an objective for improving governance through effective compliance and better understanding of the impact of the risk on business performance. This is the definition produced by Gartner. There are other organizations such as OSIG that also have definitions that may be a little bit better, but every organization has some form of GRC already, and it's important because it helps us govern with policies and oversights into the operations, looks at the risks and management of the and ensures that companies or the industries are complying locally with any local laws, with any state laws, federal laws, or industry regulations, plus the internal directives and requirements by either the business unit, by management throughout the company. And we'll see that GRC fits into the two breaches that we're going to cover. So governance is the process by which policy is set and decision-making is executed. Risk management, as the name implies, is the management and overview of the objectives of risks within the organization, how the controls operate within those, and the policy and decision sets through that governance process. And compliance is the adherence to those policies and decisions. They can be external, they can be internal, and the external are something like HIPAA, any regulation like that, and internal would be as mentioned before, looking at internal directives and requirements. The HIPAA rules that apply to breach, their definition by Human and Health and Human Services, HHS, is the impermissible use of or disclosure under the privacy rule, which is there are three administrative, technical, and privacy that comprise the HIPAA rulings. So with that, there are certain situations that are not considered a breach, and that is where a demonstration by the company or the health care insurance, the hospital, doctor's office, can demonstrate that there is a low probability that the information that has been compromised based on a risk assessment cannot be re-identified. It's been de-identified information. The disclosure was the unauthorized person who used the protected information or to whom the disclosure was made, whether the protected information was actually acquired or viewed, and the extent to which the risk to the protected information was mitigated. These are all part of the notification rule, as you can see on the slide, which requires HIPAA-covered entities and their business associates to provide notification following a breach of unsecured protected health information, which the two, the Anthem and the Premera, fall into that category. So there are different types of notifications that a covered entity must provide or should provide, and it depends on how many disclosure or records were disclosed or how much information was disclosed. And those could be individual. If there were a few disclosures, those individuals would get notification. The media, which I believe is over 500 incidences, by a business associate to the HHS secretary, in any state notifications. I know here in Montana that if there is a breach, that we have to notify the state insurance agency of those breaches, no matter how large or how small those breaches are. So the administrative requirements and the burden of proof is on the covered entity and the business associate. They have the burden to demonstrate that all notifications have been sent out, or that a use or disclosure of unsecured protected health information did not constitute a breach. And this all has to be documented, that either the notifications were made or they were not required, and they have. So it is all on the burden of the entity. In the cases that we're going to discuss are the Anthem and the Premera breaches. Let's go over some costs that are associated with breaches. Breaches can happen in any industry, such as was the case of Target and TJ Maxx and others. The breaches happen for many reasons, such as obtaining personal identifiable data, credit card data, industry espionage, and other reasons. There are just too many of them. There are an estimated 5.6 billion breaches a year. This covers all industries, and the breaches can be from outside as well as internal employee negligence. And the cost in the data breaches will only grow as more and more data is available. Medical industry breaches include insurers, doctor's offices, hospitals, which have critical information as well as other industry information, such as they have the medical data, which will cover their claims, any kind of medical information, plus the personal data, such as social security numbers, their financial information. And hackers are looking for this type of information. It has been shown in studies that security in healthcare is still inadequate. There is still a lot of improvement that can happen within the medical industry. And hackers are looking more for that type of information that is estimated to be 10 times more valuable to a hacker than credit card information is. So as you can see, the medical industry is a source of good information and the target of many hackers now. Costs associated with a breach can be intangible, which is unquantifiable cost, or tangible, which is quantifiable, which we can actually calculate that cost. So some intangible costs include reputation, loss of employee morale. So if a company had been hacked or breached, the employees will hear about it in the news from their friends and family, and this type of morale can go down, and employees not really getting into their work and stuff. So there is community goodwill. Again, the news gets out to the community, and it's looked upon the company as not being able to sufficiently monitor their data or protect their data, and even the industry goodwill, which we'll see in these two breaches. They can impact associates as well as the costs that are really tangible, and we'll see some of the costs for these two breaches include the cost just to send out the notifications, legal fees, penalties by any regulatory agency, cost of mediation. So the costs can really exceed what the company actually can make. So this is important that these breaches do not happen or happen in low quantities. I don't know if we can ever protect our systems enough not to have a breach of some sort, whether external or internal. So let's go to Anthem. Look at them overall. They are a major healthcare insurer. They are a Blue Cross Blue Shield company. And Blue Cross and Blue Shield is a corporation that certifies insurers and gives them the branding that they can use for Blue Cross Blue Shield. They can be profit or nonprofit medical insurers. If an insurer is not complying with the standards of Blue Cross Blue Shield Corporation, they can have their designations pulled, and each of them, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, are two separate designations. So the breach occurred at Anthem between December 10th, 2014 and January 27th, 2015. It affected over 80 million customers. Some were employees, others were clients, and it also affected other Blue Cross Blue Shield companies and affiliates that do business or may have cross customers with Anthem. They are across 14 states, so 14 states were definitely affected. Most of them, California, Ohio, Colorado, Virginia, Wisconsin. These are fairly, decent states, large states with good population. And as we will see, what was offered to the customers and employees, and they did not have to accept it, but it was offered to them, were protection services, identity management, protection for 2 years. So, and the study shows that for each record, which would be each of the 80 million, the estimated cost of the Anthem breach could exceed $100 million just for the cost of the protection that they're going to supply for 2 years. If all the people, all 80 million people did that, it would be well over $350 billion just for the protection. Does not include this mailing of the notifications and putting up extra websites for that. So as you can see, the cost that they incurred was pretty large. The breach itself was thought to be a phishing scheme and some social engineering. There was a believed to be a Chinese organization, which some say might have even been the Chinese government, but no one's really sure of the actual the group, but they do believe it was Chinese. They did not appear to get any credit card information or healthcare information. What they did get were the names, date of birth, member ID, social security numbers, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, and employment information. This type of information is specifically at the individuals. It was an external attack where they were able to get a database administrator's credentials. So once they got in to the systems, they were able to get into the database. It is believed that it was a behavioral discovery, which means they were looking for any abnormal behaviors for those types of accounts. And they saw suspicious activity of this administrator's account. The login information, and of course the password, were compromised. As soon as the abnormal activities were discovered, law enforcement, specifically the FBI, and a forensics company was hired to assess the breach. The attackers were not stealth. The company lacked tools to really monitor the database or to analyze the database, so they were just able to get in. Along with that, the notifications that are to be sent out to those affected by the breach were bordering on non-compliance, which means when they finally sent them out, they only had like a couple days before the expiration of the time that they should be sent out. So with this breach, there's definitely going to be an increase of scams and more phishing incidences since they've gotten emails and personal information of the victims. We'll go into Premera. They also are a major healthcare provider. across the Washington State and Alaska. Again, a Blue Cross Blue Shield company. They had their attacks as far back as May 2014. They were able, and it probably went back a little bit further, but the attacks were actually discovered in January. They're not as large as Anthem. It did affect 11 million customers, as well as employees. And again, it impacted other Blue Cross companies and affiliates. So the cost there is approximately, because they did also offer the 2 years, so they're about $4 billion if everyone accepted. Notifications could reach 5.5 million, which is about 50 cents a customer, an estimate for postage and envelopes and that type of thing. Again, it's possible, and they believe it's the same group responsible for the Anthem, a targeted attack, and it was a Chinese group, and same type of phishing scheme was used. In this case, however, besides names, date of birth, the member IDs, social security numbers, addresses, phone numbers, emails, and employment information, they were able to also obtain banking information or financial information, clinical and claims information, medical records. So the similarities between these two attacks, they were the similar type of attacks. They were phishing attacks or social engineering attacks. They were both externally done. They were targeted towards these providers in the healthcare, being major providers. They were both Blue Cross Blue Shield companies. The Chinese group is expected or suspected to be the same. Both started working with the FBI. Both had hired a third-party company to investigate and assess the breach, and they both are offering those affected a 2-year identity protection. So as you can see, that these types of breaches in the case of Premera and Anthem are pretty much the same. They hit back to back. It woke up other Blue Cross Blue Shield companies and other medical companies that these attacks can be targeted. So everyone is now scrambling to try to do assessments, be proactive. And this not only hits insurance companies, but there have been many hospitals hit in 2014 and doctors' offices with similar types of attacks and data breaches. So what was learned? Better data encryption is needed. This would include data at rest, data in transit. Not all data needs to be encrypted. We find that wherever the personal identifiable information, the medical data, a person's financial data, this should be encrypted. This would help mitigate some of these breaches. Better security awareness training, specifically in the case of Anthem and Premera in the social engineering phishing scheme area. Password and access controls changing those regularly, and making it hard for someone who does gain access to crack those. Better monitoring and analysis of systems, do periodic reviews, keep logs, look for abnormal behavior activities with all accounts, especially with any of the administrator accounts, whether they be database administrators, systems administrators, any networking administrators. So you want to, analyze those a little bit better. Reevaluate system access. So periodically have management review system access roles of the people. Make sure that those people are still in their current roles or have moved on and they need to have their roles readjusted. Participate in cyber threat information sharing. There are many groups out there, and I know for Blue Cross Blue Shield, they have an internal security group that they're going to start doing this with. These groups for cyber threat information could be also groups such as SANS. Law enforcement usually provides some information. That way, companies are aware of what's out there, what's happening, and they can prepare their own companies to better protect and mitigate these risks. Another thing to look at is cyber preparedness activities. There are cyber preparedness and cyber awareness weeks that happen. Get involved in those activities, whether it's local, statewide, even industry-wide, and federal. All of these groups do have some sort of activities that will help you prepare for any cyber attacks. In the case of Anthem, you want faster notifications. You want to make sure that you can comply with all the regulatory requirements and get those notifications out once the breach has been confirmed that it requires notifications to be sent. It does take time for 80 million or even 11 million notifications to be prepared and get sent. So you want to make sure that you have these processes in place that you can do that. You might bring in third-party companies to reevaluate your controls, to assess your systems, look for any type of holes. Even regulatory agencies such as HHS will come in and will assist with that and help you to do that. Plus, they will also come in and audit you, looking for these holes, and you could be penalized if proactive steps. You want to reevaluate your current controls periodically. Make sure that they meet any standards or frameworks that you've outlined, like ISO or COBIT, HIPAA controls, PSI or PCI controls, and make sure that you're still complying with those standards as they do change all the time. That your policies and procedures, even your configuration documents and processes have been reviewed and looked at periodically as technology is changing, and we need to reevaluate all those, and then look into some GRC tools that can automate some of these processes. For example, your policies. These tools can send out notifications when those policies are ready for review, automate who reviews them, when they're sent in, that type of thing. And also our repositories. They can also centralize your risks, your risk management, your risk registries, those types of things. So what can, as a security professional, what can you do? You can monitor or subscribe to security threat sites. There's a lot of information on the internet if you wish to learn more of the breaches, but you can become certified in your specific industry. Healthcare now has an ISC squared certification, as well as CompTI. They have one. And learn more about your industry. If you're in healthcare, learn more about the compliance regulations if you aren't aware of those. Stay abreast of any industry laws and regulations. Communicate with your peers at other companies. Learn the business side of security, the policies, processes. Learn what your business units within your company are trying, what they want to, what their SLAs are, what they're looking for in the security department. Perform self-assessments. You can do this. There's tools out there that you can do this with. Doesn't mean you have to do your whole network or anything, but specific applications or systems periodically. Develop processes and procedures for that type of thing. As I've mentioned, research some GRC tools and processes, and see, look at what your company does in the GRC space. There could be enterprise risk management. IT could have their own risk management, and see how the two compare and things. Participate in the information sharing and the preparedness activities. Of course, reevaluate current controls. Stay abreast of any new controls that you might have to implement. Document your controls. Document what you've done. If you do have to go to court or go get a regulatory fine, show your documentation. Show that you've got due diligence and you're trying to stay up on this. Reevaluate policies and promote security awareness throughout your company, friends, family, whoever. But promote the security awareness, the phishing attacks. A lot of people may not know what those really are, especially in your company. Hang posters, have seminars during lunch, brown bag seminars, those types of things. So these are things as security professionals we can do and maintain, and I'm sure there's many others that your companies may be doing. So I believe it's open for question. Thanks for attending, but questions and answers, I will go through them. This is how you can get a hold of me, either through my email, through the Twitter link, and after this presentation is over, I will try to get to those and answer as many as I can, but I will get to almost all of them within the next couple days. So with that being said, David, I think this ends my presentation. I hope it was useful and helpful and just gives an oversight of major breaches that have happened.